This poor black boy only wanted to slip into the supermarket and find a quiet corner after a long, exhausting day. But he froze when he heard the shaky voice of a blind old man, overwhelmed under cold stares and cruel insults. No one helped. No one cared. Without hesitation, the boy stepped forward, took the man's hand, shielded him, and patiently helped him choose his groceries. That gentle moment would open the door to a profound story that touched millions of hearts across America. Before we dive in, where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me, and don't forget to hype and subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. South Atlanta always seemed to wake up tired. By 7 in the morning, the streets already hummed with a restless kind of noise, the kind that came from old buses rattling over cracked asphalt, from car horns pressed a little too long, from the distant thump of construction that never seemed to finish anything. Chain-link fences leaned at weary angles, porch steps sagged, front yards held more dust than grass. The houses looked like they were doing their best just to stay standing, weathered by decades of heat, storms and worry. On some windows, taped-up charity flyers fluttered like surrender flags. Food drive Saturday, help needed, community support night. They stayed there long after the events had passed, because no one had the heart or the time to peel them down. And right in the middle of this tired landscape lived 8-year-old Jaden Carter. He wasn't big, he wasn't loud, he wasn't the type of kid who commanded a room or a sidewalk. He moved quietly, with a cautious awareness that came from learning early where danger usually came from. But he carried something unusual for a kid his age, a small second-hand voice recorder clipped to the strap of his backpack. It had scratches across the plastic and a permanent smudge on the corner, but to Jaden it was precious. He recorded everything he didn't know how to describe yet. The rumble of the bus engine, the whistle of the freight train that cut across the neighborhood twice a day, the greasy sizzle from the taco truck on the corner, the uneven click of his grandma's old ceiling fan. He called it capturing stories, though he didn't tell many people that. Kids around here didn't usually chase dreams, they chased safety. This morning, he was walking home from school, hugging the narrow strip of shade along the sidewalk. His sneakers were thinning at the toes, his backpack bouncing with each step. He kept one hand near his recorder, a habit that had become instinct. Behind him a voice cut through the air. "Yo, Jaden." He didn't turn, he didn't need to. He recognized the tone, sharp, taunting, stretched thin like a stretched rubber band. Darius. And when Darius called, trouble was never far behind. "Why you walkin' so fast?" Another voice shouted. "Ain't nobody chasing you yet." Yet Jaden's spine tightened. He kept moving, eyes fixed on the sidewalk cracks. The footsteps behind him sped up. "You got that lil recorder thing again?" Maybe he thinks he's a spy. Nah, he just weird. That word weird hit him harder than the shove that followed. His shoulder jolted forward, making him stumble. "I'm not bothering anybody," Jaden muttered, voice barely above a whisper. "That's the problem," one boy laughed. "You don't bother nobody, you just exist." Another hand reached for his backpack strap. Jaden twisted away, clutching the recorder as if someone might rip it from him. And maybe someone would. "Give it," Darius said. No. That one word was all it took, and then he was running. His feet slapped the pavement, breath punching out of him in hot bursts. He darted past a broken fire hydrant, past a barking dog behind a rusted gate, past a man on a porch who watched but didn't move. The boy's footsteps followed, heavy, chaotic, eager. Jaden turned the corner, heart pounding, and sprinted toward the only place he knew they wouldn't follow him inside. The Richmart Superstore. Its automatic doors slid open with a hiss, releasing a blast of cold, conditioned air that smelled like bleach, popcorn, and something too sweet to be natural. Jaden slipped inside and ducked behind a display of paper towels stacked taller than he was. He pressed his back against the shelves and gulped air in shaky breaths. Safe. For now. People moved past him without noticing. A woman arguing into her phone, a teenager filming himself doing some ridiculous dance for a live stream, a father dragging a toddler mid-tantrum. It was the kind of big-box store where anonymity was easy, where people were too wrapped up in their own noise to notice a scared kid hiding between aisles. Jaden peeked around the corner. The entrance was clear, no sign of Darius or the others. but something else caught his attention. A different kind of noise. Laughter. Not friendly, not kind, sharp, cutting. It came from the produce section, where a small cluster of customers had gathered. Some held phones up, streaming or recording. A few looked annoyed, a few amused, and a few just bored enough to stay and watch. Jaden followed their gaze. In the center of the circle stood an elderly white man, thin, slightly hunched, with pale, clouded eyes that didn't seem to land on anything. He clutched a cane that trembled in his hand. One foot shifted uncertainly. His free hand hovered over a pile of fruit like he wasn't sure what he was touching. When his fingers brushed the wrong item, someone snickered. He's gonna knock the whole stack down. He don't even know what he grabbed. Why's he even out here alone? Oh my God, someone go live, this is hilarious. Jaden felt that sting deep in his chest, the one that came when humiliation hung thick in the air. When people weren't laughing with you but at you, he knew that feeling far too well. The old man reached again, and this time, his hand bumped a tower of oranges. One rolled off and hit the floor with a soft thud. The laughter grew louder. A Rich Mart employee walked past, glanced at the scene, then kept walking. Another customer joined the circle, raising their phone even higher for a better angle. No one stepped in, no one helped. Jaden's fingers tightened on his recorder. He didn't want to get involved. He really didn't. He had just escaped being laughed at. He didn't want to walk right into another storm of eyes. And the thought that these strangers might turn their laughter toward him made his stomach twist. But then the old man whispered something barely audible. I just can't see which is which. It wasn't the words that moved Jaden. It was the sound of them. Fragile. Unsure. A little lost. Just like him. Before he knew it, his feet started moving. One step, then another, past the cereal aisle, past the frozen foods, straight toward the circle of grown-ups and their glowing screens. He stopped beside the old man, small and quiet, but standing straight. Sir, Jaden said softly. The man turned his head toward the sound. Yes, his voice carried a mix of embarrassment and hope. You need help. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Surprise, annoyance, a couple of eye rolls. A kid stepping in wasn't the spectacle they came for. But Jaden ignored them. For the first time since entering the store, the old man's trembling eased just a little. And in that tiny moment, barely visible, barely noticed, the first seed of something unexpected took root. Not friendship, not family, not yet, just the smallest beginning of kindness in a place that rarely saw it. For a second, time in the produce aisle held still. The hum of the refrigerators faded, the chatter of shoppers blurred, the glow of phone screens dimmed behind a silent expectation. Even the laughter, sharp and cruel just moments earlier, seemed to stall. Jaden didn't know why his legs had walked him straight into the center of attention. Maybe it was the way the old man's fingers shook, maybe it was the way the world suddenly felt too cold for someone who looked that lost. Or maybe it was because he knew, better than most kids his age, what it felt like when people watched you struggle and chose not to care. He stepped closer. The old man kept his face angled somewhere between the oranges and the voices around him, eyes unfocused, pale and cloudy like thin smoke. What are these? The man asked quietly. His hand hovered near a stack of apples, then drifted uncertainly toward the oranges again. They're apples, Jaden said, keeping his voice small, steady. Red ones. You were close. The man let out a breath that sounded like relief mixed with embarrassment. His cane wobbled. Jaden reached out instinctively to steady his elbow. The contact made the man's shoulders soften, just a little. A woman off to the side lowered her phone. Someone else cleared their throat awkwardly. The energy changed, uneven, uncomfortable, a little ashamed. Jaden didn't look at any of them. He focused only on the man beside him. If you want the apples, Jaden said, I can grab a bag for you. That would be very kind, the man answered. Each word had a gentle weight, as if he measured them before handing them over. Jaden picked up a plastic produce bag, shook it open with a little snap, and chose 3 apples, ones without bruises or soft spots. He held one under the man's hand. This one's smooth, Jaden explained. You can feel the shine on it. The man's fingers brushed the surface. Yes, he murmured. I can. Jaden continued. These ones smell sharp, almost like, I dunno, some are trying to taste fancy. The man chuckled softly, a light surprised sound that didn't quite match the tension in his posture. You describe things well. Jaden shrugged. I just say what it feels like. They moved a little away from the crowd. A few people drifted off, realizing there wasn't entertainment left. A couple stayed, not to mock, but as if curious what would happen next. Do you need anything else? Jaden asked. I'm looking for bread, the man said. And maybe milk, but I can manage. I don't want to take up your time. Jaden shook his head. It's okay, I'm not busy. Not being chased counted as not busy, right? He guided the man toward the bakery section. Their steps were slow. The man's cane clicked softly with each tap. Jaden kept close, pointing things out as naturally as he could. There's a cart near you. Don't bump into it. Floor gets slippery here, 'cause they mop too much. Bread's on the left, the soft ones are on top. He spoke like someone who had memorized this place out of necessity, not routine. The man listened like someone grateful for a map in a world suddenly full of blind corners. What's your name? The man asked. Jaden, he said. Well, Jaden, thank you. The simplicity of the gratitude felt heavier than the words themselves. And your name? Jaden asked. The man paused as if the answer didn't come as easily as it used to. Then he said, Arthur. Arthur Whitmore. Jaden repeated it in his head, matching it to the gentle voice, the shaky cane, the clouded eyes. Arthur Whitmore. He had never met anyone with a name that sounded like it belonged in a history book, but something about him, gentle, vulnerable, fit that kind of timelessness. They reached the bread aisle. Jaden grabbed a loaf of soft white bread and placed it in Arthur's hand. This one's the easiest to chew, he said. My grandma buys it sometimes. Arthur smiled. Your grandmother must have good taste. She says cheap bread's only bad if you're rich enough to complain about it. Arthur laughed, a quiet, warm laugh that felt like it surprised even him. For the first time all day, Jaden didn't feel small. They finished quickly. Milk, bread, apples, a simple list, a simple errand. But somehow it felt bigger than that. Like the store had suddenly turned into a tiny world where an 8-year-old boy and a 75-year-old man leaned on each other in the smallest, purest way. At the checkout, the cashier didn't say much. She lifted her eyebrows, scanned the items, and mumbled the total. Arthur fumbled a bit with his wallet, and Jaden quietly placed the bagged groceries into his arms. You got it? Jaden asked. I think so, Arthur said. Though I suppose my eyes have other plans. They began walking toward the front doors, but just before the automatic doors opened, Arthur hesitated. You didn't have to help me, he said, voice softer now, fuller. People usually keep their distance. Jaden looked up at him. People usually did that to me too. The doors parted, a rush of warm air swept in, Atlanta's humidity returning with all its sticky force. Jaden stepped outside first, and froze. A car waited at the curb. Not a normal car, a polished midnight black Rolls-Royce Phantom, the kind Jaden had only ever seen on TV, and even then, he wasn't sure if he was supposed to believe those cars actually existed in real life. Its chrome trim shimmered like a mirror. The license plate gleamed. The engine purred with the kind of confidence money tended to make. A uniformed driver hurried out from the front seat. There you are, sir, the man called out. We've been looking everywhere. People exiting the store slowed down, staring between the sleek luxury car and the fragile figure beside Jaden. The mental picture didn't compute. Arthur Whitmore wasn't dressed fancy. His clothes were simple, worn, comfortable. He didn't look like someone who stepped out of cars that cost more than every house on Jaden's block combined. Jaden blinked up at him. Arthur smiled gently, as if knowing exactly what the boy was thinking. Thank you, Jaden, he said, gripping the grocery bag, for seeing me when others chose not to. The driver opened the back door with practiced precision. Arthur placed a hand on the car frame, guided himself inside, and disappeared into the soft shadows of the interior. The door shut with a quiet, perfect thump. The Rolls-Royce pulled away from the curb, smooth, elegant, effortless. Jaden remained standing on the sidewalk, squinting after the car until it turned the corner and vanished completely. He realized his hand was still wrapped around his recorder. The world around him started moving again. Carts rolling, doors sliding, someone yelling about a missing coupon. But Jaden stayed in that stillness a bit longer. He had come into the store running from cruelty. He left it carrying something else entirely, something small, bright and confusing. He just didn't know what to call it yet. For a whole day after the encounter at Richmart, nothing seemed unusual on the surface. South Atlanta looked exactly the same. Buses coughing smoke, sirens far off, kids shouting from cracked basketball courts. A neighborhood used to chaos, didn't blink unless something caught fire. But something had caught fire. Just not the kind you could see. It started with a single video. A shaky, slightly zoomed-in clip captured by a grocery store security camera. Arthur Whitmore stepping carefully beside a small boy, Jaden guiding him with a hand lightly on his arm. A bag of groceries in one hand, a cane in the other. Arthur's expression confused but grateful. Jaden's eyes focused and soft. Someone leaked it. Someone made sure it spread. And the internet did what it always did. It erupted. At first the comments were simple. Wait, why's a billionaire in South Atlanta? Who's the kid? That's Mr. Whitmore, right? The tech guy. Within an hour the video hopped from local Facebook groups to TikTok, to a dozen repost accounts hungry for views. In 12 hours it hit the evening news cycle. By 24 hours it became the trending clip nationwide. And by 36 hours, the story had been twisted into shapes neither Jaden nor Arthur would have recognized. Inside the Carter apartment, the TV played at a low volume, but even low was too loud for the panic crawling across Jaden's grandma's face. "Why are they talking about you?" Evelyn muttered, remote shaking in her hand. Jaden stood small beside her, clutching the hem of his shirt. On screen, two anchors debated with the cheerful cruelty of morning show energy. Arthur Whitmore was seen in a low-income neighborhood yesterday. Do you think he staged it? Well, billionaires love their charity moments, and where did that child come from? No parent in their right mind lets their kid near a stranger like that. Jaden looked down at his feet. Heat climbed into his ears. "I didn't do anything wrong," he whispered. Evelyn pulled him closer. "I know, baby," but she was already glancing nervously at the window, as if expecting cameras to appear any second. Across the city, in a sleek office far from the cracked sidewalks of South Atlanta, a man watched the same clip, only he wasn't worried. He smiled. William Graves, Arthur's newly hired assistant, leaned back in his chair as the video played on his monitor. His suit looked sharp enough to cut glass. His expression, however, held a strange combination of calculation and bitterness. He zoomed in on the moment Jaden steadied Arthur, played it again. Then again. "This'll do," he murmured. He clicked send. Whatever came next, whatever storm arrived, he intended to let it blow as hard as it wanted. By the second day, reporters showed up outside Jaden's apartment building. Bright jackets, big lenses, microphones ready like weapons. "Jaden Carter. Jaden, can you talk to us? Did Mr. Whitmore pay you to stage the video? Are you part of a PR stunt? Is your family being compensated?" Evelyn shoved Jaden behind her. "You get off my porch," she snapped. "He's a child. A child." But they didn't leave. If anything, more arrived. Someone online had found Jaden's address. Someone else leaked his school. Someone dug up old pictures of Arthur and wrote long threads about how convenient it was that a billionaire just happened to meet a poor black boy in a grocery store. The internet didn't just question the moment, it devoured it. Inside the apartment, Jaden sat alone on the edge of his bed, recorder in hand. He pressed the play button, a soft beep, then the sound of the Richmart refrigerator hum, and Arthur's quiet laugh. Jaden closed his eyes. He wished he could crawl back into that moment, just him and Arthur, calm and simple. No cameras, no voices twisting things into ugliness. He wished people could have seen what really happened. "Why are they mad?" he whispered to himself. "I didn't hurt anybody." He rubbed his eyes, refusing to cry but feeling the sting anyway. Meanwhile, in the polished penthouse Arthur called home, but barely recognized these days. The old man sat with his fingers pressed to his temples. He didn't watch the news, but he heard it. Down the hall, staff whispered. Phones buzzed. Voices rose and fell in anxious waves. Arthur felt something heavy forming in the room. Something he couldn't see, but could sense in the way air thickened around a storm. He finally asked, "Why is everyone so upset?" His driver hesitated, then answered quietly, "Sir, that moment at the store. It's all over the country now." Arthur's jaw tightened. The boy. Yes, reporters have been hunting for him. People online are arguing. Arguing about what? Arthur asked softly. Whether you meant it, whether he meant it, whether either of you is telling the truth. But the driver didn't say all that. He simply murmured, "Everything." By day 3, social media had broken into 2 raging camps. Whitmore is faking. He's using that kid to clean up his reputation. Protect Jaden. Stop dragging an 8-year-old into adult drama. Where is Arthur? Billionaire disappears after suspicious video. Every hour, new headlines popped up. Jaden's stomach knotted whenever he heard his name spoken by strangers who didn't know him, didn't care about him, but acted like they owned the right to judge him. He sat beside Evelyn at their tiny kitchen table, knees pressed together, voice small. "Grandma, I just wanted to help." She placed her hand over his. "I know you did, sugar." A camera flash fired through the window. Evelyn jumped up, furious. "That's it. Leave this child alone." Jaden's heart hammered. He never wanted to be seen. Not like this, not like something to be picked apart. That night, as the noise outside grew louder, Jaden whispered again, this time not to himself, "I didn't do anything wrong." And even though Evelyn hugged him tight, even though she shushed him and told him none of this was his fault, something inside Jaden cracked. Not loudly, not visibly, just enough to let doubt slip in. Enough to make the world suddenly feel heavier. Enough to make him wish someone, anyone would show up and remind him that good things don't always turn bad. But in this moment, it felt like the whole world was determined to prove the opposite. The 4th morning after the video went viral, the noise outside Jaden's apartment had finally weakened. Not disappeared, just burned itself out enough that the vultures needed coffee and sleep. Inside the apartment, Jaden sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Evelyn moved around the kitchen, banging pans louder than she needed to, her way of blowing off steam without screaming at the world. "You're staying inside today," she said firmly. Jaden nodded. He didn't argue. Schools were calling non-stop, reporters were circling, and people online were inventing stories faster than anyone could correct them. He just wanted quiet, just 1 hour of peace. But peace arrived in a way no one expected. A car rolled into the parking lot. Not a news van, not a police cruiser, not a neighbor's battered sedan. A long dark luxury car, eased into a spot near the stairs, cleaner, newer and more out of place than anything this building had ever seen. One of the rear windows reflected sunlight like a blade. Jaden froze. "That looks like..." "Don't say it." Evelyn slammed the cupboard shut. Whoever that is were not answering. A firm knock sounded at the door. Evelyn's jaw tensed. "Lord, give me strength." Another knock. Polite, steady, almost apologetic. "Grandma, I think it's him," Jaden whispered. "I know who it is," she said through her teeth. She marched to the door, unlocked each bolt with an angry clack and swung it open. Standing in the hallway, leaning slightly on his cane, dressed in simple clothes that didn't hide his exhaustion, was Arthur Whitmore. His cloudy eyes lifted. "Mrs. Carter, my name is..." "I know who you are," Evelyn cut in. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. "Years, stories, warnings, and you should not be standing in this hallway." Arthur bowed his head slightly. "You're absolutely right. I'm sorry for the intrusion. I needed to speak with you." Jaden peeked from behind Evelyn, fingers gripping the hem of her shirt. Arthur heard the small movement and turned gently toward the sound. "Hello, Jaden," he said softly. Jaden swallowed. "Hi, sir." Evelyn stepped forward, blocking the doorway entirely. "You need to know this family's been torn apart for 3 days because people think they know our story. We didn't ask for that." "I understand," Arthur replied. He didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. He simply stood there, a tired old man who looked like he'd lost more sleep than any billionaire should. Evelyn studied him for a long moment, Then she sighed. It wasn't surrender, just recognition that anger wouldn't fix anything. Fine, 5 minutes, she said. And we talk right here. Arthur nodded. He didn't step inside. He didn't push. He stayed exactly where she allowed him to stand. I came to say thank you, Arthur began. Your grandson helped me when the world felt heavier than usual. Jaden stepped forward a little. I just helped you find apples. You helped me feel human, Arthur said. Something in Evelyn's expression shifted at those words, subtle, but real, but only for a moment. Humanity's a luxury for some people, she replied. For others, it's an excuse to take what you want without thinking of the hurt you leave behind. Arthur lowered his cane. His voice tightened with honesty. I never intended for any of this to happen to your family. Well, it did, Evelyn replied. People with your kind of money, you don't even have to touch a thing for it to break. Sometimes all it takes is your shadow landing in the wrong place. Jaden glanced up at her. He'd seen her protective. He'd seen her frustrated. But this tone, this was different. This was history speaking. Arthur breathed in slowly. I grew up somewhere not so different from this. I'm not blind to what these neighborhoods go through. Evelyn let out a quiet laugh, but there was nothing amused about it. Sir, with all due respect, you don't get to compare a childhood memory to a life we're still living every day. Arthur didn't argue. He nodded slowly, humbly, accepting the boundary she drew. Jaden tugged lightly on Evelyn's sleeve. Grandma, he was nice to me. Evelyn placed her hand over his. I know, baby. Then she turned back to Arthur, eyes sharp, voice low enough that Jaden felt every syllable but didn't fully understand the weight behind them. Let me tell you something I learned a long time ago, she said. Something my mother learned before me, and her mother before her. Arthur waited. Rich folks love to give, Evelyn said. They give money, give speeches, give themselves a halo. But there's always a moment, always, when they take more than they ever gave. Sometimes it's dignity. Sometimes it's safety. Sometimes it's someone's whole life. The hallway felt smaller. Still, even Arthur stood a little straighter. And you, Evelyn finished. I don't know yet which kind you are. Jaden looked between them. Two worlds crossing in a narrow hallway. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Arthur inhaled deeply, the sound trembling just faintly. I don't blame you for protecting him, Arthur said. I only came to say, the boy showed me more kindness in 10 minutes than most people have shown me in years. Evelyn's face softened at the edges, just barely, enough to show she heard him, even if forgiveness was far away. Arthur's voice lowered further, and I came to say, I am truly sorry my presence hurt your family. Jaden took one more step forward. It wasn't your fault, he said quietly. People just made it weird. Arthur smiled, gentle, tired, grateful, the kind of smile someone gives when a child sees them clearer than adults ever do. Thank you, Jaden. He stepped back, cane tapping lightly. Evelyn didn't invite him in. Arthur didn't ask. But in the silent moment between them, between her fear and his regret, something unspoken passed through the hallway. A crack in the wall between worlds, a spark of understanding, a recognition that the boy between them had started something none of them fully understood yet. Arthur turned toward the stairs. Goodbye, he said. Goodbye, sir, Jaden answered. When the door finally closed, Evelyn pressed her back against it and let out a breath she'd been holding for years longer than this week. Jaden watched her. What was that? He asked softly. Evelyn looked at him with the weight of generations in her eyes. A warning, she said, one I pray you never have to learn the hard way. The first time Jaden slipped out of the apartment after meeting Arthur, he didn't tell his grandma where he was going. Not because he wanted to lie, but because he didn't know how to explain it. How do you tell someone you feel drawn to a man you barely know? A man the whole internet was fighting about. A man who stepped out of a car that didn't belong anywhere near your block. He just went. The early evening heat clung to his skin as he walked toward the corner where the nicer neighborhoods began. Still far from rich, but with cleaner sidewalks and mailboxes that weren't dented. He didn't expect Arthur to actually be there. But he was. Standing beside a bench, cane in hand, posture straight but careful, like someone trying to pretend they didn't feel lost. Arthur turned his head slightly when he heard Jaden's footsteps. Is that you, Jaden? Yes, sir. A smile warmed the old man's stiff features. I wasn't sure you'd come. Jaden shrugged. Didn't know if you wanted me to. I did, Arthur said. Very much. Their walk started with simple steps. Arthur moved slowly, counting cracks on the sidewalk with his cane. Jaden stayed close, narrating the world the way he always narrated sounds into his recorder, but this time out loud. There's a pothole ahead. Someone drew a smiley face next to it with chalk. The air smells like barbecue today. Someone must be grilling on Oak Street. That siren in the distance is from the fire station, not the police. Police cars sound sharper. Arthur listened intently, like every detail was a gift. You see with your ears, he told Jaden. Most people don't. Jaden kicked a pebble. I see things different. Grandma says it's just imagination. I think it's a rare talent, Arthur replied. The world needs more people who notice the things others step over. Jaden didn't know what to say to that, but the compliment wrapped around him like a warm scarf. They walked past a row of small shops. A bakery released the smell of fresh bread. A barber shop blasted old R&B. Kids raced by on scooters. Tell me what color the sky is today, Arthur said suddenly. Blue, but like a tired blue. The kind where the clouds look heavy even if they're not moving. Arthur nodded as if he truly saw it. Beautiful, he murmured. Then he turned slightly. What does this street feel like? Jaden thought for a moment. Like people here try real hard, even when no one thanks them. Arthur's lips pressed together in a quiet ache. Something in that description pulled at him. Jaden didn't notice yet, but the old man was remembering something somewhere, someone. As the sun lowered, they passed the back of an old medical clinic. The building looked abandoned, but the smell drifting from the vents was strong, cleaner, sharp, slightly metallic. Jaden wrinkled his nose. Smells like hospital, like the old wing of Grady Hospital, the one with the yellow floors. Arthur stopped walking. Not a big stop, just a faint involuntary pause. Jaden glanced up. You okay? Arthur composed himself with a small breath. Yes, I'm fine, but he wasn't. Something inside him trembled, something Jaden couldn't name. Jaden didn't pry, he just kept talking. I don't like hospital smell. It smells like people trying hard not to be scared. Arthur swallowed, his hand tightened on the cane. You have a remarkable way of putting things, he said quietly. They continued walking, but the old man said less for a while, listening instead to Jaden's voice filling the spaces he couldn't. Later they sat on a bench under a street lamp that flickered inconsistently, buzzing softly in the warm dusk. Arthur rested both hands on the cane. Jaden leaned forward, swinging his feet above the pavement. Can I ask you a question? Jaden said. Anything. Why were you in my neighborhood that day? Arthur smiled faintly. I was looking for something, like groceries. No, Arthur said, shaking his head gently. Not groceries. He lifted his face toward the faint breeze. My doctor said, sometimes when the world becomes smaller for you, you need to go somewhere bigger. Somewhere that reminds you there's still life, and people, and light. Jaden blinked. Light. Arthur chuckled softly. Not the kind you see, the kind you feel. Jaden didn't fully understand, but he nodded. The boy was used to feelings that didn't have names. Arthur continued, voice low. They told me to go to the parts of the city where life hasn't given up. Places where people have to fight harder to keep going. They thought it might help me reconnect. With what? With hope, Arthur whispered. Jaden frowned thoughtfully. Did it work? Arthur turned his cloudy eyes toward the boy. I met you, didn't I? The words landed gently yet deeply. Jaden felt them like a soft hand on his shoulder. After a while, Arthur straightened his posture. May I ask you something now? Sure. What do you dream of becoming? Jaden hesitated. People usually laughed when he answered that question. But Arthur was waiting with a kind of patience that didn't rush or judge. I want to explore things, Jaden said slowly. Not like travel, 'cause that's expensive. But explore sounds, places, stories, and maybe record them. Like, find things other people don't notice. Arthur listened closely, taking every word seriously. That, he said, is a gift, and you should never let anyone take it from you. Jaden's chest warmed. He didn't get praise often, especially not this kind. The sun had nearly set when Arthur finally rose from the bench. We should get you home, he said. Your grandmother will worry. Jaden nodded. He walked beside Arthur all the way back to the edge of his neighborhood, narrating the cracks in the pavement and the flicker of streetlights. When they reached the corner where Jaden usually turned to go home, Arthur stopped. "There's something about you," he said. "Something steady. You help the world make sense in ways most adults can't." Jaden blushed a little. "I just talk a lot." "No," Arthur said softly. "You see what others ignore." He rested a hand briefly on Jaden's shoulder, a gesture both gentle and grateful. "Thank you for today." Jaden smiled. "You're welcome." As Arthur walked away tapping his cane in slow, careful rhythm, Jaden watched him until he reached the car waiting around the corner. Something in Jaden flickered, with curiosity, with warmth, with a sense that these small walks were going to matter more than he understood yet. He just didn't know how much. Not yet. The first week at Jaden's new school felt like being dropped into a storm without an umbrella. It wasn't the subjects. He was good with learning, especially when teachers let him listen more than speak. It wasn't the building either. Old, faded, but not terrible. It was the kids. Kids who stared too long. Kids who whispered when he walked by. Kids who had seen his name online and decided they knew him. Some thought he was famous. Some thought he was fake. Some thought he was the poor kid who got used by a billionaire. None of them saw him as just a boy trying to blend in. That Thursday afternoon, the hallway buzzed with bodies and chatter as students rushed between classes. Jaden hugged his books close, slipping between lockers like he was trying to become part of the wall. He didn't see the foot sticking out. He only felt himself trip. The books flew from his hands. He skidded forward, arms catching nothing, knees hitting the floor hard. Laughter burst around him, quick, sharp, eager. "Yo, careful," museum kid almost cracked. "Where's your billionaire now? Ain't he supposed to protect you?" Jaden tried to gather his books, but another hand knocked them away. A backpack shoved into his shoulder. A voice above him said, low and satisfied, "You don't belong here." Jaden's throat tightened. He didn't answer. Fear pressed into his chest, hot and rising. He tried to stand, and someone pushed him again. His heel slipped, and suddenly he wasn't on the hallway floor anymore. He was falling toward the staircase. Time stretched thin. The world tilted downward. The railing blurred. A scream caught in his throat. Then hands grabbed his backpack and shirt, yanking him back onto the top step. He landed on his side. Breath punched out of him, eyes stinging with shock. The hallway went silent. Not calm silent, heavy silent. The kind that meant something had just changed. Someone was standing at the top of the staircase. Not a teacher, not a student, not anyone who belonged in this building. It was Arthur Whitmore, 75 years old, nearly blind. He stood with one hand on the railing, one hand gripping his cane, chest rising with the effort it took just to be there. The students stared, speechless. Jaden stared too, heart still racing. Arthur lifted his chin slightly, turning his head toward the sound of the stunned crowd. "Where is he?" Jaden swallowed. "I'm here." Arthur angled his cane toward the stairs. "Are you hurt?" "I am okay." But he didn't sound okay, and Arthur heard it. With slow precision, Arthur placed the tip of his cane on the first stair. Tap. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Tap. He stepped down the second. Tap. A few kids snickered under their breath, unsure if they should laugh or run. Tap. The third stair. Arthur's hand tightened on the railing. His breath hitched with the strain. His vision clouded worse under indoor lights. But he kept going, one careful, determined step after another. Tap. He made it to the landing. Students backed away, as if clearing a path for something they didn't understand. Arthur turned toward Jaden's voice. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Silence stretched across the hallway. Jaden opened his mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Nothing." Arthur's sightless eyes narrowed just slightly. When a child says nothing with that tone, it usually means something very wrong. His voice carried, not loud, not angry, but sharp enough to cut right through the group, like a blade sharpened by experience. Arthur tapped the cane once against the floor. "Which one of you thought hurting an 8-year-old would make you bigger?" Students shifted nervously. The hallway that usually roared with noise was now frozen. Every eye pinned on the old man who looked like he could barely see them, but felt all of them. Arthur's voice deepened. "You know, I lost my sight slowly. Little by little, the world faded piece by piece." The students watched, but even now, Arthur said, "I can still tell the difference between a child who's afraid and a child who is cruel." A few kids lowered their heads. Some stepped back. Others pretended to check their phones. Arthur turned again toward Jaden. "Come here, son." Jaden stumbled to his feet and walked toward him. Arthur reached out gently, found Jaden's shoulder, and held it with a grip firm enough to anchor both of them. "You're safe," Arthur murmured. "I'm here." Jaden bit his lip. "You shouldn't have come. It's a school." "I don't care if it's a school, a courthouse or a battlefield," Arthur said. "If someone hurts you, I will show up." The words landed like thunder, quiet thunder, the kind that rolls under your ribs and stays. In the far corner of the hallway, a student lifted their phone. Nobody noticed, not yet. Arthur turned toward the crowd one last time. "If this is how you treat someone smaller, someone kinder, then you're the ones who can't see." No one dared to answer. Jaden felt a warmth spread in his chest. Shock, gratitude, something he didn't have a name for, but would remember for the rest of his life. Arthur gently guided him back from the stairs, cane tapping rhythmically as they moved. The hallway remained silent, long after they were gone. Silent, but not for long, because the phone held by the student in the corner was already uploading a video of an old man nearly blind, walking down a staircase to defend a child, in front of an entire school. A moment pure, raw, and powerful, and in a world that loved drama, nothing stayed quiet forever. The video of Arthur on the school staircase hit the internet like lightning. Within hours, the clip exploded across every platform. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, morning shows, late-night talk shows. People didn't know what to do with it. An elderly, nearly blind billionaire, walking down school stairs to defend a little boy. It didn't fit into any neat narrative the internet loved. Some called it heroic. Some called it staged. Some called it proof he was losing his mind. Reporters camped outside Arthur's penthouse. They camped outside Jaden's apartment too, and when the pressure finally reached a breaking point, Arthur's team decided to hold a press conference. Not to explain everything, just to breathe. The conference hall wasn't fancy. It wasn't meant to be. A simple backdrop with a corporate logo, rows of chairs, a podium with too many microphones. The kind of place scandals went to be poked, twisted, and dragged into headlines. Cameras flashed the second Arthur stepped inside. He walked slowly, cane tapping against the floor in steady beats. His suit was neat, but his face looked tired. Lines deeper, jaw tighter, shoulders carrying weight no one else could see. His security helped guide him to the podium. A reporter shouted before he even reached the mic, "Mr. Whitmore, are you mentally fit to manage your own company?" Another yelled, "Why were you alone with a child again? Is this philanthropy or manipulation? Are you grooming him for PR purposes?" Jaden stood behind the curtain with Evelyn gripping his hand so tightly, he almost lost feeling. He flinched with every word thrown at Arthur. "He can't do this," Jaden whispered. "They're gonna tear him apart." Evelyn's eyes softened. "Baby, sometimes the world tears people apart before it realizes it needs them." Arthur reached the microphone. The room swallowed his voice. Reporters spoke over him, accusations flying faster than he could form sentences. His cane trembled once against the podium, a barely visible sign of strain. Jaden felt something inside him tighten. He couldn't watch this, not after everything Arthur had done for him. Not after the stairs, not after the quiet walks and the stories and the kindness. He pulled his hand from Evelyn's grip. "Jaden, wait," she hissed. But he was already walking, small steps at first, then faster, right past staff trying to block him, right toward the bright lights and cameras. Everyone froze as the boy stepped onto the stage. The noise stopped, just stopped. A room full of adults fell completely silent as 8-year-old Jaden Carter reached for the microphone. He didn't look at the cameras. He didn't look at the reporters. He looked at Arthur, and Arthur, even with cloudy eyesight, felt the moment shift. Jaden's voice began soft, small, shaky. "My name is Jaden," he said, hands trembling at his sides. "The boy from the videos." Cameras clicked. Some reporters leaned forward. Others prepared their pens. Jaden swallowed hard. "People keep saying things about Mr. Whitmore, about me, about what happened." He paused. "But you're all wrong." A ripple moved through the room. Jaden's voice steadied, not loud, not rehearsed, but fueled by something true. "He didn't see me clearly that day. Not with his eyes. He can't, but he saw me good enough." Arthur's head tilted, as if absorbing the words. "And a lot of you," Jaden continued, gaze flicking across the sea of adults. You see everything. You see better than him. But you don't see anything at all. The room stiffened, cameras zoomed, something in the air shifted from hostility to a stunned, breathless quiet. Jaden kept going. Mr. Whitmore didn't ask me for anything. He didn't use me. He didn't pay me. He didn't try to make himself look good. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. He was just a man who needed help, and I helped him. That's all. A reporter lifted a hand, but Jaden raised his voice, not yelling but firm. He didn't use me. I used my eyes to help him, and he used his heart to help me. Arthur exhaled sharply, emotion breaking through the strict self-control he always carried. Jaden wiped his face with the back of his hand. You all talk about him like he's some kind of monster or mastermind or whatever, but he's just someone who's trying really hard. He turned toward Arthur again, and he's the first person who told me I see things other people ignore. Arthur's throat tightened. The room, camera crew included, stared in complete silence. Jaden's final words landed like a soft explosion, quiet but impossible to forget. He can't see the world like you do, but he sees the good in people, and some of you see the world perfect, and still miss everything that matters. No one moved, no one spoke, not even the reporters who lived for scandal. Jaden stepped back from the microphone, and for the first time since the chaos began, Arthur straightened his posture, not proud but moved, held together by the bravery of a boy who refused to stay quiet. Staff hurried forward. The conference ended abruptly, the room buzzing with shock and shifting narratives. But Jaden didn't hear any of it, because the second they stepped behind the curtain, Arthur knelt just slightly, just enough to reach for Jaden's hand. You spoke truth, Arthur whispered, voice thick, more truth than any adult has spoken today. Jaden squeezed his hand back. I just said what was real. And that moment, quiet, simple, felt bigger than anything happening on the stage outside. Even though neither of them yet realized how big the aftermath would be, the world didn't calm down after the press conference. It got louder. Jaden's speech went viral. Every news station replayed it. Every influencer reacted to it. Every comment section split in half. Some people praised his honesty. Others accused Arthur of coaching him. Some called Jaden brave. Some called him manipulated. And in the middle of all the noise, one man quietly watched everything burn. William Graves, Arthur's assistant, his shadow, his saboteur. He watched Jaden's speech replay on a loop from behind his sleek office desk, eyes cold, jaw tight. Perfect, he muttered. It wasn't admiration. It was calculation. Because now that Arthur had become sympathetic to some and hateful to others, William knew the next blow would land harder than any scandal so far. He opened a secure folder on his laptop. A grainy clip filled the screen. Arthur, late at night, stepping out of his penthouse elevator, the hallway dim. Arthur's cane tapping uncertainly, his hand missing the wall by inches, his foot catching a carpet edge, and then Arthur stumbling, falling forward, crumpling onto his knees. The footage didn't show the exhaustion that caused it. It didn't show the medication side effects. It didn't show the weeks of deteriorating vision. It only showed the moment he fell. William leaned back, expression unreadable. This, he whispered, is the one that ends him. By morning the clip was everywhere. Billionaire losing his mind. Is Arthur Whitmore a danger to children? Unstable, unfit, untrustworthy. The headlines came like arrows. Sharp, fast, cruel. Jaden saw the video on a stranger's phone at the bus stop and felt his stomach twist into a knot. That's not what happened, he whispered. But the internet didn't wait for explanations. It didn't wait for truth. It just devoured the moment and demanded more. Inside Arthur's penthouse, the atmosphere felt different. He sat in his living room with the curtains half drawn, light filtering through like it was afraid to enter. His cane rested beside him. His hands didn't rest at all. They clenched and unclenched on his knees. He had been quiet for hours. Too quiet. His staff moved around softly, whispering, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Jaden arrived with Evelyn, escorted inside by security. Mr. Whitmore, Jaden asked softly. Arthur didn't lift his head. He'd seen storms in business. He'd endured betrayal, lawsuits, losses, but this felt different. This felt like being stripped bare in front of the whole world. Why would someone show that? Arthur whispered. His voice wasn't angry. It was wounded. Why would anyone weaponize an old man's weakness? Jaden stepped closer. It's not your fault, but Arthur shook his head slowly. My fall makes me look confused, lost, dangerous. His voice cracked, as if I can't be trusted near you. The room sank into silence. Jaden's fists tightened. He wanted to say 1,000 things, but the words stuck in his throat. He wasn't the only one hiding something, because Jaden hadn't told Arthur about the men who had come 2 nights ago. The loud banging on the door, the warning whispered through the wood. Tell the billionaire kid to keep his mouth shut, or we'll shut it for him. Jaden hadn't told a soul, not Evelyn, not Arthur. He didn't want Arthur to hurt more, but guilt pressed down on his chest, heavy and suffocating. Arthur sensed something. He turned slightly toward Jaden, even though his eyes could no longer focus. You're quiet, he murmured. Too quiet. Something's wrong. Jaden looked down. I'm okay. Arthur's brows pulled together. No, you're not. You're trying to protect me. Those words cracked something open. Jaden's breath hitched. I don't want you to be hurt more than you already are. That did it. Arthur's calm broke. Not in shouting, not in wild anger, but in the rawness of his voice. I am already hurt, he said. But the thought of you being afraid, the thought of you hiding something to keep me safe. His hand trembled. Jaden, I can't protect you if I don't know you're in danger. Evelyn stepped forward, worry on her face. Danger? What danger? Jaden's lips pressed shut. Fear crawled up his throat. He didn't want this. He didn't want the truth to become real by saying it out loud. But Arthur's voice softened. Tell me, son. Jaden's eyes filled, but he forced the words out. Men came to our door. The room froze. Arthur inhaled sharply, the sound sharp as a break. And they said, if I keep talking, if I don't stop defending you, bad things will happen. Arthur's cane shook violently. Who did this? His voice wasn't gentle now. It was fierce, raw, protective in a way that surprised even him. Who threatened a child? Jaden wiped his eyes. I didn't want you to know. Arthur stood, not easily, not steadily, but powered by something deeper than strength. He looked toward the blurred shapes of the staff in the room. Find out who did this, he ordered. Now. Then he turned toward where he knew Jaden was standing, and for the first time since his vision had dimmed, Arthur wasn't lost. He was burning with clarity. You listen to me, he said, voice shaking not with fear but fury. You are braver than every person hiding behind a camera. You are stronger than every lie they tell. Jaden blinked, stunned. Arthur's next words came from somewhere deep, somewhere that had been locked away since the day he lost his daughter. You are more courageous than any of the cowards who dare to threaten you. And if they want to hurt you, Arthur whispered, they will have to go through me first. Everyone in the room felt it. The shift, the spark, the old lion waking up inside a nearly blind man. For the first time in weeks, Arthur's voice carried strength instead of confusion. But outside this room, the world was still sharpening its claws, and the storm wasn't done yet. The internet kept screaming, the headlines kept spinning, the scandals kept piling. But something else, something no algorithm predicted, began to rise quietly beneath the noise. Real people, not influencers, not commentators, not strangers chasing views. People who had lived the same struggles, people who recognized fear, injustice and kindness when they saw it. And it started at Jaden's front door. On a gray Saturday morning, Evelyn opened the curtains just a little, expecting like always to see reporters lined up on the sidewalk. But today, it wasn't reporters, it was neighbors. Dozens of them, families from their block, mothers holding toddlers, old men leaning on canes, teens with hoodies pulled up, people from the same struggling community the world had judged without understanding. They stood shoulder to shoulder, filling the path, the steps, the street. A handwritten sign held by a teenage girl read, "Our kids are not media props." A man next to her held another, "Protect Jaden. Protect our own." Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. "Lord have mercy." Jaden came to the window, eyes widening. "Grandma, they're here for us." Evelyn nodded slowly, overwhelmed. "Baby, they're here because of you." Word spread fast, the way good things sometimes do when they refuse to die quietly. More people arrived, not to take pictures, but to stand watch. Someone brought bottles of water. Someone else brought homemade sandwiches. A woman set up lawn chairs, saying, "No child in this neighborhood stands alone." Jaden opened the door timidly. The crowd turned toward him. A wave of warmth rippled through them. One woman stepped forward. "Sweetheart, you don't have to be scared. You did a good thing. And we're gonna make sure you're safe." Jaden didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to crowds loving him. Crowds usually pointed, laughed, judged, but these people weren't here for spectacle. They were here because they remembered what it felt like to be unheard. Meanwhile, across the city another wave was forming. Former employees of Arthur. People he'd quietly helped over the years. People nobody knew existed because Arthur never bragged about his generosity. They began posting their own stories. "When my daughter needed surgery we couldn't afford, Arthur paid the bill anonymously. He donated computers to my school without attaching his name. That man bought groceries for strangers during the pandemic and told us not to tell anyone." Video after video. Post after post. Stories of quiet kindness. Stories of a man who never asked for applause. The internet blinked, hesitated, paused, because truth when spoken by real people can sometimes cut through the noise like nothing else. Back at the Carter apartment, more unexpected support arrived. A group of black lawyers, sharp suits, calm voices, eyes full of purpose, walked up the steps together. One of them knocked. "Mrs. Carter, yes, we're here to offer pro bono protection for you and your grandson." Evelyn blinked. "Why?" "Because no child," the lawyer said firmly, "should face threats for telling the truth." Jaden watched them from behind Evelyn's shoulder, awe softening his fear. He didn't know lawyers could look like that, like protectors instead of punishers, as if the city hadn't surprised them enough already. Another unexpected moment arrived by afternoon. A woman in a nurse's uniform stepped forward. Jaden didn't recognize her. She took a breath. "Your friend, Mr. Whitmore, he helped me years ago." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "How?" "My son was sick. We were drowning in bills. I wrote letters to dozens of people asking for help. Only one man replied. He sent a check with no return address. I didn't know it was him until today." She wiped her eyes. "He deserves someone fighting for him the way he fought for strangers." Jaden felt his chest warm, like a soft glow spreading beneath his ribs. He wished Arthur could hear all this. He wished the world could see what he saw. That evening, after hours of people holding signs, bringing food, playing music for the kids, and refusing to leave Jaden's side, something quietly shifted in the air. A black SUV pulled up. The door opened. Arthur stepped out. He didn't come with a security team. He didn't come with PR handlers. He didn't come with fear. He came with the weight of a man who thought the world had turned against him, only to find out it hadn't. The crowd parted instinctively. Arthur came tapping gently, followed the sounds of breathing, footsteps, whispers, until he stopped just a few feet from Jaden. The boy ran to him without hesitation. Arthur reached for him, hands trembling, finding his shoulder. "You're safe?" Arthur asked. "I am now," Jaden said. "Look at all these people." Arthur lifted his face, eyes unfocused but full of gratitude. "I can't see them, but I can feel them." A voice in the crowd said, "We're here for both of you." Another chimed in, "You're not alone, Mr. Whitmore." And then from somewhere deep in the group, "We don't abandon people who show kindness." Arthur's breath shuddered. Something inside him cracked open, not in pain, but in relief. For the first time in months the world wasn't accusing him. It was protecting him. The next morning, the biggest shift of all arrived. William Graves, fired, exposed, dragged into an investigation, sat in a room full of lawyers, facing consequences that hit harder than he ever expected. And Jaden Small, shaking but determined, was allowed to speak during the inquiry. He stood in front of a row of adults in suits, Arthur beside him like a quiet anchor. Jaden cleared his throat. "I think people can change," he said softly, "even grown-ups." The room froze. Even William looked up, eyes flickering with confusion, surprise, and something else he hadn't felt in years. Jaden continued, "I think everyone should get one day to start over. Even people who hurt others." The silence afterward wasn't heavy, it was hopeful. A thin strand of humanity threading through a room that usually swallowed kindness whole. Arthur placed a hand over Jaden's. Proud, moved, a little broken, deeply healed. And the wave, the one no one saw coming, kept rising. Because kindness, when multiplied by real people, stops being fragile. It becomes unstoppable. 1 year later, the city felt different, not louder, not richer, just softer. Spring sunlight poured across the courtyard of the Whitmore Foundation Learning Center, Arthur's newest program for underprivileged kids. Dozens of families filled the seats, dressed in their best, phones ready, eyes proud. And at the center of the stage, in a too-big blazer and polished shoes that made him walk funny, stood Jaden Carter, now 9 years old, still small, still gentle, still seeing the world in ways adults couldn't. He held his speech paper with both hands, trying to stop it from shaking. Behind him, the banner read, Talent Program Graduation Day. Applause settled, lights dimmed slightly. Jaden stepped to the microphone. "Hi, my name is Jaden," he began, voice soft but steady. "A year ago I didn't think I would be here. I didn't think anyone would care about what I could do. I just thought I was another kid nobody noticed." He looked out into the crowd, and then I met someone. A door opened backstage. The audience turned. Arthur Whitmore stepped into view, a cane in his right hand, a soft smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. His eyes cloudier now, his vision nearly gone, but his presence brighter than ever. He moved slowly toward the steps leading to the stage. Jaden didn't wait. He ran to him, small hand grabbing Arthur's wrist, guiding him up carefully, step by step, mirroring the very journey they'd walked together all year. When they reached the podium, Jaden whispered into the mic, "This man, he taught me how to walk forward, even when everything feels heavy." Arthur leaned slightly toward him, voice gentle enough for the whole room to quiet. "And this boy taught me how to see, even when the world went dark." The audience stood, not gradually, not politely. They rose all at once, mothers, fathers, neighbors, strangers, clapping for the two people at the heart of the storm the world had once twisted. Jaden's eyes watered. He turned back to the mic. "Mr. Whitmore didn't need eyes to see me," he said. "He just needed kindness. And sometimes, kindness is the only thing bright enough to help someone else find their way." Arthur placed a hand on Jaden's shoulder, not guiding him, not protecting him, just standing with him. Jaden finished softly, "The path I'm on today, he taught me how to walk it. And the light you all see today, he helped me find it." The applause swallowed the room. Somewhere in the very back row, almost hidden in the shadows, sat a man in a simple gray suit, William Graves. No cameras, no spotlight, no power left to wield. But when Jaden and Arthur embraced at center stage, William slowly lifted his hands and clapped, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but out of a quiet, aching understanding that everyone deserves one chance to become better than their worst moments. A year ago Jaden's kindness had cracked him open. Now, it was planting something new. And as the ceremony ended, Arthur and Jaden walked down the stage steps together, an old man nearly blind, and a little boy once overlooked, moving forward with matching smiles, letting the sunset paint them gold. A family no one expected, a bond no one could break, and a reminder whispered across the world, not everyone who sees clearly can recognize goodness, but those who carry goodness see people more clearly than anyone. If you want more emotional, heartwarming stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, where stories of kindness, healing and second chances come to life through powerful narration. Follow for more touching stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that might just change someone's day. Thank you for reading. See you in the next story.